Alright, so now we're going to do changing fractions to percents. This is on page C4. So we're going to give you a little example of what to do here. Now, changing fractions to percents is actually a two-step process. The first thing you do is you change the fraction to a decimal, and then you change the decimal into a percent. Okay, and you've already learned both of those steps, so this shouldn't be very hard. It's just putting the two steps together. Okay, so let's start out with the first step. And so we have an example here that says change 3/4 to a percent. Okay, and so step one, like I told you, change the fraction to a decimal. Change the fraction to a decimal by dividing. Okay, and so if you remember back, we did this, a couple weeks ago. You take your fraction and you divide the top number by the bottom number. So remember, the top number of the numerator goes inside. Okay, so you see we wanted 3/4, right? So the 3 is on the inside and the 4 is on the outside. And then you just divide, right? So you add a decimal after the 3, and then 4 can't go into 3, so then you add a 0, and 4 goes into 37 times. You get 28, subtract, and so forth, and you end up with 0.75, right? Or 75 hundredths. Okay, and then step 2, we've now got our decimal there. Okay, that's our answer, 0.75. So you write your 0.75. Okay, right down there. And then you change the decimal to a percent. Okay, and we've been working on that this week. So how do you change a decimal to a percent? Okay, you move the decimal 2 times to the right. Okay, so you start it right here. We go 1, 2, and then we add our percent sign, so that becomes 75. You can put your decimal there if you want, but you don't have to. Percent, and that's how you do it. That's it. Okay, so first start out by changing the fraction to a decimal by dividing, and then once you've done the decimal, then you change the decimal into a percent by moving it over. Okay, 2 times to the right. Okay, so you have some try these right there. Give those 2 a shot and see how you do. Okay, so let's look at this first one. We have 6 and 5/8, right? 6 and 5/8. So we start out by dividing. So we're just going to focus on the fraction. We're going to divide. Okay, the 5 goes on the inside. The 8 goes on the outside. Okay, now 8 can't go into 5, so we add our decimal, bring it up, we add a 0. Okay, so 8 can't go into 5, so we got a 0 there. So 8 goes into 50 6 times, and that's 48. We subtract. 50 minus 48 is 2, so we still have a remainder, so we have to add another 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. We subtract 20 minus 16, we get 4. We still have a remainder, so we got to add another 0. We'll bring that one down. And 8 goes into 40 5 times, and 8 times 5 is 40. So 40 minus 40 is 0. So there is our decimal part. Now remember, we do have this whole number still, right? So we have 6.625, or 6 and 625 thousandths. Okay, now the next part is we're going to change it into a percent, because we've only changed it to a decimal right now, right? So we change it to a percent by moving it 2 times to the right, and so we get 662 and 5/10, and we add our percent sign. And there you go. That's it. Okay, so 2 steps you already know how to do. You know how to make a fraction into a decimal, and then you know how to make a decimal into a percent. So you're good to go. All right, the last one we have 3.5. Okay, so hopefully, I would hope you actually know how to change 1/2 into a decimal really quickly in your head. But for those of you that don't, we're going to go ahead and do this. Okay, put the 1 on the inside and you put the 2 on the outside. Okay, you add a decimal because 2 can't go into 1, so you put a 0. Add a 0 there. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And you have no remainder, so there's 0.5. Okay, so hopefully you knew that 1/2, if you change it into a decimal, just right off the top of your head, you should know 1/2 equals 0.5, right? Okay, now writing that as a decimal with our whole number before it, we get 3 5/10, or 3.5. Now to change it to a percent, we have to move that 2 times to the right, and we have to add a 0 in there. And so we end up with 350%. Okay, so those are your two steps to change fractions to percents. You change the fraction into a decimal by dividing, and then you move the decimal 2 times to the right to change it into a percent. Okay, that's all there is to this, so make sure you go ahead and give that a shot and get yourself lots of practice.